Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Kuf Mem in Baba Basra. We learned for Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asum Matzar V'Shivya. Yesterday we learned the Mishnah that if a man died and left boys and girls, sons and daughters, and if there was enough nechasim, if there were left enough assets for the girls to be fed, for the boys and girls to be fed until such time as the girls become of age, that's 12 and a half, then if there's more than enough there, then the boys get the Yerusha, and they have to feed the girls until they become of age. They have to feed them Mizono. That's what we saw by if there's enough nechasim. What the lashon of the Gemara was, bisman she'nechasim rubim. If there's plenty of assets. If there's not enough assets, there's not enough to feed them until the girls reach the of age. Then the girls get all the assets. There's not enough to feed that. There's not enough to feed both boys and girls until the girls become of age. Then if there's not enough for that, the girls get the assets, and the boys have to go begging. That's what we said. Itmar nami, a few lines from the bottom of yesterday's daf. Itmar nami kiyasa rabban ram kibes ram Rabbi Yochanan amilam Rabbi Yochanan kol sheyizonu mehen elu ba'elu ad sheyibagru. In other words, what's considered nechasim rubim? If there's enough for the boys and girls, both enough to eat until they're 12 and a half, till the girls become 12 and a half, that's nechasim rubim. Then the boys get the Yerusha, and they feed the girls. Haim rubim. Less than that, so the Gemara says in the last line on the page on Days on yesterday's daf, Kufla Metasim Days, so what does that mean? If there's not enough for the boys and girls to eat, there could be enough for the girls, but not for the boys and girls until they eat. So shaklu baras, the girls take everything. Let's take an example. Let's say that it'll cost $50 each for the boys and girls to eat until they're 12 and a half. So it says like this: if there's $100 there, okay, the boys get the Yerusha and they feed the girls from that. If there's less, then that's the chasamotim, and the boys go begging. So what happens if there's $75? Not enough to feed them both. There's enough for the girls to be fed. They only need $50. And there's $25 left over. So the boys have to go begging. Why can't they at least get the $25? They get everything. It doesn't mean that. It means you give the $50 that the girls need till they're 12 and out. The boys get the rest. The point is that you give the benefit to the girls because it's difficult for them to go begging. Like Michael said yesterday, they could be compromised. They could be defiled. People could take advantage of them. So if there's not enough to go around, you feed the girls first and the boys go begging. If there's enough for the girls to be fed, meaning till 12 and a half, and there's something above that, the boys will get that. If there's enough for both boys and girls to be fed until the girls turn 12 and a half, assuming means all the girls turn 12 and a half until the last one is 12 and a half. If there's enough for that for both of them, then the boys get the Yerusha and the girls are fed from that. Shita Bru, says the Gemara in the third line, let's say there was enough assets at the beginning. Let's say there was $100, $50 to feed each of them, to feed all the boys and girls until their girls are 12 and a half. Shita Rubim and Ismat, if there was enough initially, and then it became less. It was worth $100 initially, but then let's say the price of food went up. Originally, let's say it would cost $100 to feed them, and now it costs $125. So now there's not enough. Cheatim Reuben Esmatu, Farzocha Bar Yoshim. The Yoshim got their Yerusha, and as they get the Yerusha, they own the Yerusha, and they have to feed the girls. Okay, because they got it already, even though there's not enough to go around now. So each one will get proportionally what they need. If it's less, that's what he says. Farzocha Yoshim B'Shas Misa Aviyam, says Rashbam, and it's called Nechasim Reuben. And everybody will get proportionally what they can eat. Feed each one, proportionally. What happens more than what happens if originally there weren't enough assets to go around? There was less than $100. So the boys did not get a Yerusha. But then afterwards, the price of food went down. Or for some reason, their assets went up, so it was worth more. B'shus Yorshim coming to you say, well, now the Yorshim get it. It was always in the Shus of the Yorshim, but they had to go begging because it wasn't enough, but it really belonged to them. Therefore, the increase of the assets that it's worth more now, and now there is enough. Now it is Nisrabu. Now it is Nechasim Rubim. Would that belong to the boys? Once the boys have to go begging, in other words, they're taken out of the Yerusha. And therefore, if it went up in value. If the stuff went up in value, it didn't belong to them in value, but it went up in value, presumably, according to everybody, meaning the girls get the Yerusha, the girls get all the assets, and the boys still have to go begging. So Tashma, the Gemara proves it from this case. The
base did sets the amount.
Yeah, they'd have to appraise it in Bezdin. Yeah, they'd have to go to Bezdin to work out the details. Again, Minat Torah, as soon as the father dies and there's boys and girls, the boys get everything. The boys have the Yerusha. But they have to, the girls will complain, but also part of the Ksuba is that the Ksuba says that the father's going to feed the daughters until they get married. So that has to be worked out. So the question is, who owns the Yerusha? So here we see, let's say there wasn't enough to go around, and therefore the girls should get the Yerusha. I mean, whatever's there, they're gonna need. Let's say the father died penniless, so there's nothing to do, no money. But whatever he had, if there wasn't enough to feed all the children until the girls become 12 and a half, then we said that the girls get everything and the boys have to go begging. But let's say, despite that, the Yisomim went and sold it. Technically, the Yisomim owned it Minat Torah as soon as the father died. Let's say the Yisomim got together. Whether it was one boy or 10 boys, they got together and they sold everything. Well, it's done. Because Minat Torah, it's a good sale. And the rabbis didn't knock off that. The rabbis did not give them a knas, so to speak, and make the sale invalid, because Minat Torah, they really owned it. Except if you come to court, the court will work out the details the way we described them, giving the girls. So the girls get the benefit because they can't go begging. So if there's not enough, the girls get whatever's there, the boys go begging. If there's more than enough, then the boys get the Yerusha, but they have to feed the girls from that until they're 12 and a half. That has to be set aside. They can't say, well, again, if they sold it, they sold it. But technically, the halacha is that they have to follow the court's what the court tells them to do, which is, yeah, you own the Yerusha, but you have to feed the girls till they're 12 and a half, so make sure there's enough money for that. So these are the rules when a man dies and he left boys and girls. Again, if he left girls only, obviously they get the whole Yerusha, like B'nos Lofchad. If he left boys only, then the boys split it in the way the Torah described. Yes, Rav Yirmiyah Kamed Rav Vu. Rav Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rav Vu, Kaboy Min, and he asked him this question. What about the Almana? Now, the Almana doesn't get any Yerusha, we learn, right? A wife does not inherit her husband. However, there's a ksuba. And just like the girls get, why do the girls get? Because he wrote in the ksuba, if I die, you're going to get the $200 or whatever the ksuba was worth, plus you'll be fed until you get remarried, if she gets remarried. It also says, I'm going to feed the girls till they get married. I'm going to feed the daughters. So Rav Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rav and he asked him this question. Al menuso ma'u shetamat menachasa. Rashbam and Tosas both agree that the question is like this. If there was only let's say, an almana and boys, okay, the boys get the Yerusha, they have to feed the wife. That's the deal. Here, the question rises if there's boys and girls, and we said if there's boys and girls, and there's not enough, there's nechasim muatim, the girls get the priority, right? The boys have to go begging. What happens? There's also an almana there, the wife. He died, and he left a wife and children. Would she also... Would her presence and the obligation to feed her, to take care of her, does that also lower the amount of nechasim? What do we say? What makes something nechasim muatim? If there's not enough to feed the boys and girls until the girls become 12 and a half, right? Until the girls become 12 and a half. Well, what about feeding the wife? Let's say we said it costs $50 to feed the boys and $50 to feed the girls until everybody's 12 and a half, right? So if he left $100, that's already nechasim merubim. Less than that is nechasim muatim. Okay, let's say you have the $100. The estate was $100, but it also costs another $10 to feed the almana. Now the problem with this is well, we'll see how long do you have to feed her? See, by the girls, you could say, by the children, you could say until they're 12 and a half. That's a fixed amount. You could estimate that. The court can set aside, could bring an accountant in and say how much is it going to cost to feed these girls for the next 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. But the wife is open-ended. We don't know if she'll ever get remarried, right? So the question is, is her presence make the nechasim? In other words, there was $100 there, so that's nechasim merubim. But there's also a wife, and she needs $10. So does that make it nechasim muatim even though it's $110? So, and therefore the boys wouldn't get anything. The girls would get their $50, the wife would get her $10, and then the boys could get whatever's left because they don't really own the Yerusha anymore. The Yerusha was taken away from them. They have to go begging. Does her presence lower the amount of the nechasim so that it can go from nechasim merubim to nechasim muatim? Rashbam 4 lines before the lines get wide. Rashbam al menuso the divrei mas al menuso ma'ashet tamam nechasim misham es minich baram banos. That learns the same way. V'niach nam el menuso v'tzrichanami bezonos koi me mega as long as she's an almana. Ben kan nechasim el kidei masna baram banos ad she bagru. Mi amrina, there is enough. There is enough. You have $100, but keeping this lamazona. But since you have to feed her, so there's no longer $100. He left $100 for the boys and girls. That would have been enough. But she needs also $10. So now he's only $90. Keeping this lamazona, lo mikra nechasim rab, mafrishim menachasim mazon isha vabanos that she bug most of the boys will only get $40, not enough to feed them. The mu'atnin or not? Or do you say not? That's the question that he raises here. That's the first question. So, but
why doesn't the mother get her money get paid first? She
does. Okay, so that
she should get paid.
Right, she will get paid. Okay, and okay. So the chasim are to her and to the daughters, just the daughters equally. So that's the question. There's no question. She definitely gets food. The girls definitely get food, but does her presence lower the amount of the estate from $100, which would have been enough for the boys actually to get the Yerusha? I mean, if it was exactly, they don't have much of an advantage. It was exactly $100. Let's say it was $1,000 or whatever. So, does her presence lower the amount? Yes, she's going to get hers. And you have to pay, you have to give her food, you have to give the girls food. But does her presence lower the amount of nechasim? In other words, instead of $100, let's say it was $101. So there's definitely nechasim rubim. But now she needs $10. So you've only got $91 left. Does that lower it, or don't you look at it? Yes, you have to feed. You have to feed her. Yeah, according to the Tanakh Suba, you have to feed her just like you feed the daughters. The daughters don't get any Yerusha. The wife doesn't get any Yerusha. The Tanakh Suba says you have to feed the wife and the daughters. But when you make the computation, is this nechasim merubim? So that the boys get the Yerusha and they have to feed the other ones and feed themselves? Or do you say no, that what is it? Is it still nechasim merubim? Or do you say no, her presence lowers the amount of nechasim and now it's nechasim muatim? And the boys basically would only get whatever's left over after the girls and the wife get fed. But in Nachlaim, of course you feed them first. Would her presence, the fact that you feed her, lower the amount of nechasim, so that it's now nechasim muatim instead of nechasim rubim? In other words, instead of being $101, which would have been enough to feed the boys and the girls, but now her presence lowers it. Mi amrin and keeping the Islam Mazonas, since she's entitled to Mazonas Mamata, does lower it. Odilma keeping the Ilu Mitzvah Lesla. How do you know? Maybe she gets married the next day. As soon as she buried the husband, she got married a month later, whatever. She got married. She waited shloshim, whatever. Then she got married, so she's not entitled to the thing anymore. So why should it lower it? Why do you say $10? Maybe she needs 50 cents. Yeah. Yeah. She got the ksuba. The ksuba she gets, that's an obligation that she has to get paid. But we're talking about the mazonos that you have to feed her. Also, she's entitled. Besides the ksuba, the $200, or it might have been $100, or might have been something else. Besides that, that was considered paid. She collects that. But you also have to give her mazonos until she gets remarried. So but maybe she'll get remarried right away. How do you quantify that? That's the problem.
She could not marry at all.
Or she got married, no, you have to feed her forever. Correct, right. So you say since she's mazonos, so you have to allot for her mazonos. Oh, don't keep do leminsa, but since she gets married lesla, hashnami lesla, you don't take that into computation at all. Yes, as long as there's money, you feed her. But you don't have to make that into the computation. Is this considered nechasim merubim, where the boys get the Yerusha and they have to feed the wife and the daughters until they become 12 and a half or until they get married, and the wife until she gets married, if that's what's written into the ksuba. Do you just look at it that way? Or do you say no? Since you have to feed the wife, you have to allow for that, and it lowers the amount of the Yerusha. Now it's only nechasim muatim, and the boys don't actually get the Yerusha at all. If you say even the ilam mitzvah lesser, you can't figure that because it's not something that can be computed. You don't know how long she's going to be an almana. Maybe she'll live 100 years as an almana. Maybe she'll live 5 minutes. We don't know. Even the mitzvah less the hashnam, so you don't consider it. What about Bas Ishto Mao? What about his stepdaughter? A man marries a woman, and she says, I have a daughter. Are you going to account for her? He puts into the ksuba, I'll feed her for 5 years. That's a standard thing. I'll feed the daughter for 5 years. That's my obligation. She's not my daughter. She's your daughter. I'll feed her for 5 years. What about that? If you have to feed her for 5 years, that's a fixed amount of money. That's, let's say, $5. Does that lower it or not? Does that lower the amount of the Yerusha? So it would be considered a chasamot. See, with the stepdaughter, it's a 5-year deal, even if she gets married, because the deal was, I'll feed her for 5 years or 6 years or whatever the deal was. Whether she gets married, since she gets married, she's entitled to it anyway. So therefore, that is a fixed obligation that should lower umamat, and it lowers the amount of the estate, so that it's nechasim oatim. Odilma even do lemesa, since if she dies, let's say the daughter dies. She doesn't, that daughter dies. She might have gotten married and died and have a Yorish, but the Yorish doesn't get anything. It's just a deal. I'm going to give her, as long as she's alive, I'll give her for 5 years. I'll feed her. It's even the less love, not therefore it shouldn't lower it. These are difficult questions. It's hard to solve these. You could look at this both ways. Since if this stepdaughter dies, she's not entitled to anything, and therefore maybe there's no obligation. There's no obligation. Therefore it doesn't. What about a balchov? What happens if a man died, left boys and girls, but he also left a creditor with a document, an IOU that he has to pay that guy? Now, well, what do you say? Listen, okay, he left $100, but he also left a obligation of $60 or something, or $70 or $40. Let's say he had to pay balchov $40, right? He left an obligation there. So $40 that the children will have to pay that. Right? Let's say it's in real estate, whatever, but he left an obligation of a $40 piece of attractive land. So now instead of $100, he really only left 60. Do you say it's only 60 and therefore it's the chasim muatim? Therefore the girls will get their 50 and the boys will have to get just what's left over is 10 and then go begging, or not? Do you say even if the balchov dies, his yorshim, his heirs are entitled to collect the loan, and therefore it does lower the amount of the estate from $100, let's say, to $60. Odilma, since it hasn't been collected, right? It's not collected. Right now, there's an estate of $100. Look at it the way it is now. It hasn't been collected. Maybe the guy will never collect. We don't know. Therefore, maybe it doesn't lower it. All these questions are difficult questions, and we don't really have an answer to them. Tells us the whole thing. What do you mean not collected? The girls haven't collected their money yet either, but apparently the ksuba is more direct. Like you say, he has to pay the wife, he has to feed the wife, he has to feed the daughters. Some say all the questions are asked in reverse. The last question was asked first. He asked them these questions. If there's a balchov, you left $100, which is enough for the boys and the girls till 12 and a half, but he also left an IOU of $40 that he owes. Does that lower the amount of nechasim? Or bas ishtomau, imtim slomer, as Mom says at the top of the page, imtim slomer chov memai. If you say, yes, a loan does limit, does lower the amount of the estate, decreases the amount of the estate from $100 to $60. That's Hanimil Yafagab the Elon, because since if he dies, there's still a loan. Aval bas ishto, if she dies, she's not there, he doesn't have to pay anything. A man married a woman with the condition he's going to feed her daughter for 5 years. Then she died. He doesn't have to feed her anymore. Would that decrease the estate or not? Or almanuso ma'ashit machas. Same thing. Let's say his wife. The first question that we asked on Amar Aleph is now the last question of those three. If he left it on Mona and he has to give her $10, does that lower the amount of the estate so that it goes from being in a chasim rubin to chasim muatim? Now, a fourth question he has on now. Amanuso bas ezim kodemis. Okay, both of them are Tanai Ksuba. Tanai Ksuba says you have to feed the wife, the almana, and you have to feed the daughter. When a man writes Ksuba, he says at the end of the marriage he's going to give her the $200, whether he divorces her or he dies. But if she's an almana, if he dies, he has to also give her mizonos. Okay, but he also has to give the daughters. Who comes first? Let's say there's not enough to feed the girls and the wife. Who comes first? He asked me that question. Omerle. So when these questions were posed by whom? Who was the question? The questions were posed by Rav Yirmiyah to Rav Avu. So Rav Avu said, "I'll tell you what. Let me think this over. Omerle Zilud, now leave now. But tell him, come back tomorrow. I'll try to think about it. Kiyasa, when he came back the next day, Amrlay. So Ravu told him, I'll at least decide one of the questions. The first three questions that you asked on Amar Aleph and that you reverse them in order on this page, I don't have an answer to those. I'll answer the last question. An almana next to the daughters are like daughters next to the brothers. He was lashon bas. It should be like bas eitzel abonim. Don't forget, the almana is his almana. The daughters are his daughters. They might be daughters from a previous marriage also, right? Or he might have several wives, right? So there's an almana, and there's not necessarily the daughters are not necessarily the daughters of the almana. They're his daughters, right? So that's they could be both. They could be the daughters of both if there's one marriage, but it doesn't have to be. But he dies now. He leaves a widow and he leaves daughters. Who gets the priority? So he says, also almana eitz labas kabas eitz lalachan, just like girls next to boys. What's the deal by nechasim if there's not enough to go around? Let's say again, they each need $50. The boys and girls each need $50 to hold them over until the girls till 12 and a half. Let's say he only left $80. So what happens? That's nechasim. The girls get the $50. The boys get the $30, which isn't enough to feed them until 12 and a half, and the rest they have to go begging. Or if he only left $50, the girls get the money, and the boys have to go begging immediately. Okay, so just like a bas eitz lachem nechasim ma bas eitz lachem, just like a girl with the boys. If there's a girl and boys, habas nazonos, the girls get the food. The boys have to go begging. The same thing with almana compared to the girls. Almana nazonos for bas tishal psachim, the same thing that the almana, right? Just like we say that they made an almana, they made it like just like a daughter next to the boys. The girls get fed and the boys have to beg. Almana eitz labas. Almana nazonos, you give the wife gets priority, the widow gets priority, she's fed. And the girls have to go begging. So there's cases when, let's say he died with nothing. Everybody has to go begging, right? So here you're going to say the same thing that Rashbam says in the second line on the top of the page. They both want they're both eating based on the Takad Rabbanan. Remember, we said even if you didn't have a ksuba, that's an automatic Tanai ksuba. You have to feed the wife, the almana, and you have to feed the daughters. So I guess they said it's better to give the wife the money and let the girls go begging. It's harder, presumably, for a wife, a married woman who was widowed, to go begging. Better let the daughters go beg. Now, the Mishnah said again, Rashbam said we paskin like Admon, but the whole Gemara he was dealing with nechasim rubim, nechasim moatim. Then Admon said, why? Just because I'm a boy and I get more stuff elsewhere, I'm more choshev, I have better advantages, I should lose out now? We said if there's not enough, let's say the man died and left only $50. So the Tanakama said $50 is that's the chasim moatim, it's only enough to feed the girls. The boys have to go begging. So Admon said, just because I have an advantage, because I'm a boy, I get some advantage elsewhere, now I have to lose out. And therefore he held that that's all wrong. You split everything, equally. Let them both lead. The boys get the Yerusha and they have to feed the girls as long as there's money, just until the money runs out. I mean, Leo says, Roani is Divrei Admon. Rashbam said from that, the halacha, that's the halacha. But all the other Rishonim seem to say, or most of the Rishonim seem to say, we don't paskin like Admon. And Rabbi Gamliel says, Roani is Divrei Admon. That's Rabbi Gamliel's opinion, but that's not the halacha. The halacha is like Tanakama, as we've explained throughout the Gemara. So the question is, what was his argument though? Just because I'm a male and I have some other advantage, I lose out here. Why should I lose out? In other words, just because you gave me this advantage, I should lose this out. If I get this plus, I get this minus, my comer. What did he mean to say? What advantage did he have? Because I'm a male. Not that girls cannot learn Torah, but he has more of an obligation to learn Torah. And if I'm fit to learn Torah, therefore I get that advantage. I get a bigger, right, because the Gadol Mitzvah Mosa, Mishaina Mitzvah, because I learn Torah and I have this advantage, I fulfill this mitzvah. So because of that, I'm going to lose out here. Just because I have some advantage, I should lose out. If that's your advantage, only if a man learns Torah, he gets the inheritance. He gets the inheritance, right? And the one who doesn't learn Torah should not inherit. What do you think? Does inheritance depend on whether he learns Torah or not? Obviously, he has an obligation to learn Torah, but it doesn't mean it's not dependent on that. It doesn't really mean Yerusha. Technically, it's chus over here to get the Yerusha, to get the Mazonos, whatever it was. Should he lose out just because he doesn't learn Torah? It says, what's my advantage? Oh, since I get to learn Torah, therefore I should lose out when it comes to the money. So what? Therefore, only the sons who learn Torah get the advantage, and the ones who don't. That doesn't make sense. Since I'm a zachar, I'm a male, and therefore I'm fit to inherit by nechasim merabim. Let's say he left $1,000 and only cost $50 to feed the girls till they're 12 and a half. So the boys get the $950 and they feed her the $50 and feed the wife, whatever, but they arshin it. Since I'm a male and I'm fit to yarish, when there's boys and girls, only the boys get the Yerusha. If sadati b'nechasim, therefore I should lose out over here. That was his claim, and therefore he said that shouldn't be the halacha. He shouldn't lose out, but rather, feed them, but he shouldn't lose out. The Yerusha, again, in a very small Yerusha wouldn't probably make much of a difference, but it would mean that presumably they would both share, the boys and girls would both share whatever money there was to feed themselves until it ran out. But you wouldn't say that automatically, if there's only $50, the girls get it. What does the Tanna Kama say? If there's only $50 and the girls need $50 to feed themselves, till then, say it's only boys and girls, simple case, and no almana. So the girls get the $50 and the boys immediately go begging. Admon didn't hold to that, but we don't pass like Admon.
There's nothing in the Gemara that says that the boys have to go to work.
Yes, that's what you mean. The boys should go to work. Of course, it means go fend for themselves. If they can't work, go beg. If you can go get a job, of course, get a job.
I mean, you're assuming that they're little.
They're little. They can't. It means if they can work, of course they should go work. Of course they should go work. Should go work. Of course, that's what we mean. Of course, they go work. Let them go work. We had before that the older son usually handles the estate. If he could do things, of course, he can do business. There's an obligation to work. That's from the time of Adam Arishon. You've got to go work. Doesn't come the money. Money doesn't grow on trees.
It sounds like they go begging, which is the only option.
No. It means to say if they have no other option, go begging. Obviously, they're young. If they're young kids, they got to go begging. That's what they do. In those days, women couldn't work, so the women didn't have much of a choice until modern times. 100 years ago, or whenever it was, 100, 150 years ago, women didn't work. They couldn't get a job. But yeah, the boy, no, but he means that there's cases where the girls also have to go beg. It means go begging means do the best you can. Go out on your own. Okay, now we get to, we're going to talk here about tumtum, which is brought down many times in Shas. A tumtum, Rashbam uses the lashon is atum, it's sealed. A person is born and there's no genital, he has no visible genitals. We'll call it, today in today's Michigan world with all kinds of different pronouns and sexes and stuff like that, none of the above. None of the above.
For the next 4 years.
So yeah, okay. I think so, huh? None of the above. You forgot about the deep state. Anyway, so the question is, whether in general we hold that it's either a boy or a girl. You could have a suffix, you don't know, but it's a boy or a girl. However, there's an opinion that a tumtum and even an androgynous for sure, there's a stronger opinion by androgynous. Androgynous has both. What is its sex? Is it a buried pronouncement? Is it a third sex, a third gender, or not? There's an opinion, we're going to see, that even a tumtum, which sometimes today's world, if it was born that way, maybe they could operate and see which one it is and then check the chromosomes and the DNA and all that other kind of stuff. But there's an opinion that a tumtum is also a beri b'fnei atzma. So you could say that there's 4 genders, male, female, tumtum, and androgynous. Okay, now let's say the Mishnah says like this. The Mishnah says, let's say a man died, left boys and girls with tumtum. Okay, he left, let's say, 2 boys, 2 girls, and a tumtum. What is a tumtum? So bisman shenachasim room again, if there is plenty of assets, more than, we've defined that already as more than enough to feed the boys and girls till they're of age. Hascharim dochen eitzel hanekevas. What are the boys? Now the boys, what's the halacha there? The girls have to be fed, right? Have to be fed till they're 12 and a half or till they get married. I mean, they can get married when they're 6 also, whatever, but till they get married. And the boys get the Yerusha, and the boys tell the tumtum, what are you? You're not a boy. You're not going to get we're not going to give you a share in the Yerusha. right? That's what they're going to say. How do we know you're a boy? So push them to the nekevas. Now, will they get like a nekeva? Will they get fed or will they get nothing? Will they get nothing? That's going to be a discussion in the Gemara. It's going to be a discussion in the Gemara. There's two ways to learn, right? If you say, the Rabbanan made a takana for the girls, that's part of the example, but the girls are fed. But the tumtum may not get anything. He's not a boy, he's not a girl. If he's not a boy, not a girl. Now, we don't hold that way. We hold that a tumtum, halacha, a tumtum is a suffix. So therefore, he'll at least get like a girl. They'll say, look, come to the court now, and the apotropos, who's, let's say, in charge of disposing of the estate, or executor, whatever you call that, right? And you say, look, either give me like a boy. Okay, if you say I'm not a boy, at least I'll get like a girl, one of the two, because I'm either a boy or a girl. If you hold that a boy, he's a boy or a girl. If he's a third person, a third gender, maybe he gets nothing. We'll see. So again, let's say there's only $50, enough to feed the girls, right? Enough to feed the girls. So what will the girls say to the tumtum? You're a boy, you get nothing, right? Again, if he's a boy, if the tumtum is either a boy or a girl, we just don't know which one. So at least he's going to get like an akeva, right? But we say over here, the akeva says, no, you're a boy. And if you're a boy, what's the halacha ben chasim muatim? Go begging. No, if it's the chasim muatim, the boys have to go begging. So if there's plenty of assets, the boys tell the tumtum, assuming that the tumtum is a third gender. If the boys are there, the boys say to the go to the girls, right? If there's plenty of chasim, the chana says and the kaipas, and he gets nothing because he's not in a cave either. And if there's the chasim muatim and the girls get everything, so the girls will say, no, you're a boy, you have to go begging or go to work, however you like to learn that. That's if it's, again, I'm giving you both sides, assuming that the tumtum, I just explained the way that if the tumtum is a third gender. However, the Gemara is not dealing now with an androgynous, right? But the androgynous presumably would be the same questions. Okay. Omer, we'll come back to that in the Gemara. Again, is he either or? Again, if it's either or, he's either a boy or a girl, and there's the chasam merubim, so the boys get the Yerusha and the girls get fed. So then he has a claim. He can say, either give me like a boy, right, or then I'm a girl. So give me at least give me like a girl, and I'll at least get fed till 12 and a half. But and if it's the chasam muatim, then he'll get the lesser of the two, which means nothing because he'll have to go begging. Okay, now another case. Omer, a man is, according to the two ways to learn, let's say he's a shchimera. A man's dying, and he says, "In Taled Ishti Zachar, my wife is pregnant. If she gives birth to a boy, Yitel money, he should get $100." In other words, he's very happy if it's a boy, he wants to give him $100. This is besides the Yerusha, right? If it's a boy, only Yerusha, meaning maybe there's other boys there too. But he said, I want to give him a gift of $100. Yolda Zachar, and she gave birth to a boy, Yitel money, he gets $100. The chiddush over here is that even though there's a rule that a mezaka uber lo kani, you can't be mezaka something to somebody he's not born yet. Still, in the case if it's shchimah, rather Rabbana made a special zakon again so that he shouldn't get upset. He's on his dying bed. They said, yeah, let it be. Some say we're speaking about a bari, and it was mezaka like de'achar, but that's more complicated. The Gemara will talk about that. So, but the idea here is, let's say it works. Let's say he's a shchimera. A simple case is shchimera, and he says, if my wife gives birth to a boy, give him $100. Besides the Yerusha, it's a gift. In the keva masayim, let's say he says, if my wife gives birth to a daughter, I'm going to give her $200. Tomorrow will say right away, and tomorrow's will say, why does in a stam case you pick a girl getting 200, a boy getting 100? Because it's harder for a girl, right? Why would he give a girl more? It's harder for her to get money, whatever. Boy can fend for himself better. It's harder for her to go around begging. So he gives her $200. The other keva tells about the time he gets 200. Let's say he says, now listen carefully. Let's say he says, Im Zacharman im the cave of He says, listen, my wife's about to give birth. I'm assuming she's going to have one baby. If it's a boy, $100. If it's a girl, you see, if he said originally, if it's a boy, if he just said, if she gives birth to a boy, I'm giving $100. Okay. She gives birth to a girl, nothing. It's nothing, right? Let's say he said, if he gives birth to a girl, I'm going to give her $200, and she gave birth to a boy, nothing, because he wanted a girl. For whatever reason, he wanted a girl. Okay. Let's say he says, Im Zachar Manim, he says, if it's a boy, $100, if it's a girl, $200. The older Zachar Nikev, it doesn't mean Zachar. Rashbam has a whole he says, sounds like gave birth to twins. No, he wasn't anticipating twins. He didn't want twins. He just said the older Zachar Nikev, he gave birth to a boy or a girl. Zachar not the man, Nikev is not the Messiah. In other words, he could have said either he said, if it's a boy, $100. He could have said the second case, if it's a girl, $200, in which case, in either of those two cases, if she gave birth to the other one, he gets nothing. Or he might have said, if it's a boy, $100, if it's a girl, $200, then whatever he gave birth, she gave birth to a boy, it's $100, he gave birth to $200. If she gave birth to twins, nothing. That's how Rashbam learns. Because he wasn't anticipating twins. He just said, if it's a boy, I'll give him $100. If it's a girl, $200, fine. If he gave birth to a boy, $100, give birth to $200. Yolda tumtum. Let's say she gave birth to a tumtum. Now, if we're learning, again, not the halacha, we don't paskin. We paskin that a tumtum is a suffix. Presumably today they could determine if it's a boy or a girl based on an operation or whatever, or MRI or a CAT scan or whatever they do. They figure it out. But according to this opinion, we're going to see this opinion goes like Shimon Leo, gave birth to a tumtum who is a third gender. At this point, we're saying, ain't a noto, because he said if it's a boy, $100, if it's a girl, $200, and she gave birth to a tumtum, he's neither, or it's neither. It's neither, therefore gets nothing. If he says, whatever my wife gives birth to gets $100, let's call it $150. Then, well, she gave birth to a tumtum. It is a child. It is a child. The imain sham yoresh elahu, yoresh is a kol. Let's say he only gave birth to one child, and the child was at a tumtum, or for that matter, an androgynous, right? So what do you say? It's still a child. You might say it's not a. What do you mean by tzlafchad? We said, what were the rules? If a man dies and leaves a son, he gets everything. Imain lo ben, give it to the daughter. Well, why don't you say gets nothing over here because it'll go to the shul, it'll go to the charity because he's not a boy or a girl. But we learned before imain lo ayin lo, because it says ayin with a yud. I have check it out. That means to say any child. So if you gave birth to a child who was not a boy or a girl, even if you say, now, if we learn like we learned, that tumtum is a suffix, so it's either a boy or girl. If he's the only child, what's the difference? He gets everything anyway, right? He's the only child. If you learn though, like this Mishnah is saying here, that is maybe it's a third gender, but he's still a child, and therefore we still get the Yerusha. So there's several chedushim in this Mishnah.
The pronoun the Mishnah uses is who.
Who? Yeah. Oh, that's stam. Thank you. Say stam. Good. Yeah. Okay. Right. You can say that's stam. Okay. Dochanoso, because there is no other pronoun. Yeah. Dochanoso. Okay, so there's a question. Let's go back to the first case. A man died, left boys and girls, let's say 2 boys, 2 girls, and a tumtum. So we said, if there's plenty of assets, the boys say, look, okay, we get the Yerusha. You're a girl, maybe you're a girl, we're not giving you anything. So does he get like a girl or not? So Dochanoso, Vishakul Kabas. Dochanoso, Pushim like a girl. Right, gets like a girl, meaning he's either a boy or a girl, and he's going to get like one of them. Okay, so the boys say you're not a Yorish here. You're not a boy. Prove that you're a boy. You have proof. You don't have no proof. Therefore, we're going to treat you like a girl and get like a girl and get fed like a girl because he's either a boy or a girl. Oh, that's what it sounds like. Dochnos, they push him to the girls. If say you're a girl, we're only going to give you food. You're not going to get a Yerusha. Haktani Sefer, but the Sefer of the Mishnah says Yolda Tumtum ain't a notel at all. So why don't you say also, if he said, listen, in the cases where he said, if my wife gives birth to a boy, he says, if my wife gives to a boy, $100. If it gives birth to a girl, $200. And he gives birth to a tumtum, doesn't get anything. What do you mean doesn't get anything? It's either a boy or a girl, right? So I should at least get $100, right? You say if it's $100, if it's a boy, $100, if it's a girl, $200, and you go to a tumtum, Mishnah say you get nothing. What do you mean nothing? It's a boy or girl. Okay, so maybe I'm not a girl. I won't get the 200, but at least I get the 100. Why don't you say that too? Elamai sits, what do you see? And it's mashma. You don't get anything. It's mashma that he's not a boy or a girl. He's a third gender. Amar Abaya. So Abaya says, Einochanami dochanos sova einlo. He doesn't get anything. When we say dochanos in the beginning of the Mishnah, we're going to synchronize that with the end of the Mishnah, and we're going to say, yeah, he's a barrier b'fnei atzma. Rashi says he's not a boy or a girl. He doesn't get anything. In other words, when we say he left boys and girls, and he left a large amount of money. The boys say, we get the Yerusha. Oh, you go to the girls. Doesn't mean you go to the girls and you got to get Yerusha like a girl. You're not going to get anything there either. You're not a boy or a girl. So that doesn't fit into the tonight's subah of getting fed. Very sad, very sad. Hopefully they'll give him some food anyway, give the tumtum food anyway, but technically you don't get anything. And Achanami, because he's a beri b'fnei atzma, he's not a boy, not a girl. He doesn't get Yerusha, he doesn't get mazonos like a girl. That's how Abaya learns. In other words, he's going together with the end of the Mishnah. Not that that's the halacha, but that's the shot in the Mishnah. The Mishnah holds that a tumtum is a third gender. For Rav Amar, no. Rav says no, that he's not a beri b'fnei atzma. The beginning of the Mishnah says, listen, if there's a lot of money there, the boys can say, maybe you're like a girl. We're going to give you food. And if there's nechasim mu'atim and the girls get everything, they're going to say, no, you're going to get like a boy, meaning go begging. You get the lesser of the two. So if there's a lot of assets, there's Yerusha and there's food. So the boys will say, you're not getting Yerusha, you can have food. You get the lesser of the two. If there's nechasim mu'atim and there's only food and begging, they're going to say, you're going to go begging. Go prove that you're a girl. Okay? What about the sefer that says that the tumtum gets nothing? If my wife gives birth to a boy, $100. Wife gives a girl, $200. She gives birth to a tumtum, you get nothing. Why nothing? It's either a boy or a girl. The sefer also goes like that Tanan we learned in which Masech this? It's in I just had it for it's in Tmura. Yeah, it's in Tmura. They're talking about a case of Arichan, case like this. A man says, listen, if this animal gives birth to a boy, I want the boy to be an Ola. An Ola animal is always a boy. An animal, a four-legged animal is always a boy. If it's a girl, we'll make it a shlum. A shlum could be a boy or a girl, zachar and a cave. Shlum. Let's say it gives birth to two boys or two girls. Okay, we deal with it there. Let's say the animal gave birth to a tumtum or an androgynous, right? The baby, the calf, whatever you call that, was also a tumtum or an androgynous, was either indeterminate gender or both genders. Shemuli Omer, Ein Kedusha Chalein. It's not a boy or a girl, it's a third gender. In other words, and a carbon has to be a boy or a girl. Shlomim could be boy, girls. Chatas depends on who's chatas. A chatas of a regular person is a kisper, a seer is a female. An asham is always a male. An ola is always a male by animals. So Shmuel says, no, it's not. It's neither. He holds that it's a third gender. So the end of the Mishnah is going like that pshat that it's a third gender, and therefore the Mishnah is going like that that the tumtum gets nothing in all these cases. The tumtum is set aside and gets nothing. Meisvei kasha tumtum yoresh keben b'dis and kabas. We have a brayso which says a tumtum inherits like a son and gets mazonos like a girl. So Bishlam the Rava who says what? That it's not a barrier, it's a suffix, la barrier, right? Rava says he's not a separate creature, but it's a suffix. So Bishlam Rabba, Yorish Kaban B'Nechasim. If there's Nechasim Mu'atim and he gets the lesser one, if the girls get everything, so he's Yorish Kaban B'Nechasim, and then he goes begging, fends for himself. V'nizun Kabas B'Nechasim Rubim. If there's Chasim Rubim, meaning that sons inherit and feed off the girls, so we're not sure what he is. So the boys could say, maybe you're a girl, we're only going to give you Mazonos. So Rava could learn that way. Elul Abaye who learns that the Mishnah, and apparently he's going like Shmuel that a tumtum is a beri b'fnei atzma. My nizon kabas. What do you mean he gets mazonos like kabas? He doesn't get mazonos at all. He gech nothing. So the Gemara says, well, tameich l'rava my yorish keben. What did we just say? Yorish keben, right? Why does yorish keben b'nechasim yorish keben b'nechasim mu'atim gets nothing? Gets nothing, meaning b'nechasim mu'atim gets nothing. Yorish keben, what does it mean? He doesn't really get anything. What do you mean he gets inheritance like a son? Ela roy larish. He's fit to be yorish like a son. Ve'elo. In other words, a tumtum, we don't know what he is, and he's fit like a son, but he doesn't get anything because he's a tumtum. So he's going to get nothing. He's going to be like even according to Rava, who learns that it's a suffix. And the girls, if it's nechasim mu'atim, the girls could say, maybe you're a boy, go begging. So what does it mean, Yorish? He's not really getting Yerusha. El Roiler, she's fit Yorish. They're calling him like maybe you're a son, but maybe you're a boy, and you're not getting anything. Hachanami, Roy Lozen Be'enlo, the same thing over here. And he says over here that Roy Lozen, Nizan Kabas Menachasimot, doesn't really get Mazonos. He's just Roy to get Mazonos. Meaning, Benachasim Merubim, the boys could say, okay, maybe you're like a girl. It doesn't mean he's going to get like a girl. It just means that they could push him off and treat him like a girl and say, look, we're not giving you Yerusha, go like a girl, but it doesn't really mean he gets anything. It means you're fit to go. It's a little bit docha cancer because by Yorish Keben, we know he gets Yerusha like a ben, meaning there's nothing there. You go begging. Yorish Keben Benachasim Muatim means the girls say to the boys, they has to give the whole $50 to the girls, and the boys have to go begging. Here also, Roy Lirish Vainlo, Roy Lawson Vainlo. It doesn't mean it means get into anything. So this is all really we're trying to explain. Abai is really going like Shimon Leal that we don't paskin like that. A tumtum has halacha like a beria b'fnei atzma, like a third gender. But we don't hold that way. We hold that a tumtum is really a suffix. Question comes up among the Rishonim: what happens by let's say a man dies and he left over a daughter and a tumtum, right? These were his two yorshim. Now, how do you split it? So some Mefarshim say 50-50, right? He's either a boy or a girl. He's not sure if he's a boy. So let's say he's a girl. So two girls, they split it 50-50. Some say no, that is a suffix if he's a boy. Therefore, he should get 3/4. It's like Shnai Mochsim Batalis. One guy says it's all mine. One guy says it's half mine. Yeah. The girls can only claim the girl could claim I'm entitled to half the Yerusha because you're a girl. The boy could claim the tumtum could claim maybe I'm a boy. So therefore she only gets 1/4. Why? Because he for sure gets a half. Think about it. The tumtum is either a boy or a girl. If he's a girl, he gets half. If he's a boy, he should get everything. So on 1/2, it's for sure his. 1/2 is for sure his. She may get nothing. If he's a boy, she should get nothing. A boy and a girl. I have a tumtum and a girl. If he's a boy, again. So on 1/2, he's for sure going to get it. The other half, it's a suffix. He says, maybe I'm a boy and I should get the whole thing. And she says, no, maybe you're a girl and I should get half. So on that half, right, they split it. So it's a suffix, they split it. And therefore he gets 3/4 and the girl gets 1/4.
Does he have to give her half mizonos then?
Yeah, we're talking about a Chasim Merubim. So sure, Chasim Merubim, yeah, they presumably they both, yeah. You have to give them mizonos. You have to give them mizonos, yeah. All right, call to it.
He has to give her breakfast or lunch, but not dinner.